If someone told you there was 10, 20, maybe even $40,000 sitting there, money you could legally use toward buying your first home, would you go get it? Obviously, right? Of course you would. But here's the thing. That money exists. It is funded by the state of Washington, by counties, by cities, and a huge percentage of first-time buyers in this state never touch it. Not because they don't qualify, because they don't know it's there. I'm Scott Alfano. This is Signed and Funded, and today's episode is the one I wish every first-time buyer heard before they ever started their home search. Because if you're buying your first home in Washington State, there is a very good chance that there are programs designed specifically for you. Programs that can reduce what you need at closing, lower your interest rate, or both. And today, I'm going to walk you through all of them. Let's get into it. This is episode 7 of Signed and Funded, and we're right in the middle of the first-time buyer cluster. We've talked about pre-approval and what it actually means. We've talked about down payments and why you don't need 20%. And today we're going to stay on the money side of things, specifically the programs in Washington State that help close the gap between what you've saved and what you need. I want to be clear about what this episode is and isn't. This isn't going to be a dry policy rundown. I'm not going to read you eligibility criteria in a monotone voice. What I'm going to do is explain how these programs work in plain English, who they're for, what they actually give you, how you can access them, so that you walk away from this episode knowing exactly what to do, who to ask, and who to call. And I'll say this up front. I'm a Washington State Housing Finance Commission loan approved officer. I've helped real buyers in Washington access these programs. So when I tell you this stuff works, it's not theoretical. These are real tools that real buyers are using right now to close on homes in Seattle, King County, Clark County, and all across the state. Let's start at the top. WSHFC, Washington State Housing Finance Commission. It sounds like a government acronym that has nothing to do with your life, and I get that. But stick with me for a second, because this agency is the reason a lot of people in Washington can buy homes that they otherwise wouldn't be able to. Here's the simple version. The WSHFC doesn't lend money directly. What they do is work with a network of approved lenders, mortgage companies, banks, credit unions, and they fund programs that those lenders then offer to qualifying buyers. So when you hear WSHFC program, what that really means is go find a WSHFC approved lender and they'll walk you through what you qualify for. The two main things the commission offers are first mortgage programs and down payment assistance, and they often stack them, meaning that you can get a commission mortgage and down payment loan at the same time. Now, before you can access any of these programs, there's one thing you have to do first. It's not actually that painful. You take a free 5-hour home buyer education course. The WSHFC requires this for essentially all of their programs. The courses are available at heretohome.org. That is HERETOHOME.org. They cover everything from budgeting to the mortgage process to what to expect at closing. It's actually a solid crash course, and I'd recommend it even if you didn't need it to qualify. One more thing before we get into specific programs, and this is important. Washington's definition of a first-time homebuyer is more flexible than most people expect. You qualify as a first-time buyer if you haven't owned and lived in a home as your primary residence in the last 3 years. So if you owned a home 10 years ago and you've been renting ever since, you may still qualify. And if you're buying in what is called a federally designated target area, certain lower income or lower home ownership percentage neighborhoods, the 3-year rule may not even apply. The bottom line, don't disqualify yourself before you check. You might be more eligible than you think. All right, let's talk about the two main WSHFC mortgage programs. The first program is called Home Advantage. This is the workhorse, the most widely used commission program in the state. If you've heard of any Washington State first-time buyer programs, it's probably this one. Home Advantage does two things. First, it gives you access to a below-market interest rate on your first mortgage. How much below market? It varies and it changes, so I'm not going to quote a specific number, but historically, it's been meaningfully lower than what you would get just walking into your bank. On a $500,000 loan, even 0.25% difference in the rate saves you real money over time. Second, Home Advantage comes with access to down payment assistance. This is structured as a second mortgage, a separate loan that sits behind your first. The average amount through this program is about $10,000. Some buyers get more, some get less. It depends on income, loan size, and other factors. The key thing to know is that down payment assistance, this DPA loan, is deferred. There are no monthly payments on it. You don't pay it back until you sell, refinance, or pay off your first mortgage. Let me make that concrete. Say you're buying a home in the Seattle area for $550,000. You're going FHA with 3.5% down. That's about $19,000. Home Advantage gives you $10,000 towards that. Now you need $9,000 out of pocket instead of $19,000. That's a very different number for a lot of buyers. Who qualifies for Home Advantage? Income limits are typically in the range of $100,000 to $180,000 annually, depending on your county and your family size. You need a credit score of at least 620 generally. Your DTI, debt to income ratio, needs to come in at 45 to 50% or below. And you need to take that home buyer education course that we talked about. One other thing, you need to put in at least 1% of the purchase price yourself. The program isn't designed to get you in with literally $0. They want to see that you have some skin in the game. The second program is House Key Opportunity. Think of it as the more targeted version. It's designed for buyers at the lower end of the income spectrum who need the most help possible. House Key uses tax-exempt bond funding, which allows the commission to offer an even lower interest rate than Home Advantage in some cases. To access House Key, you typically need to pair it with a down payment assistance program, and there are income and purchase price caps that vary by county. The honest answer on House Key is, if you're eligible for it, your loan officer will tell you, and it's worth exploring. It's not as universally applicable as Home Advantage, but for the right buyer in the right situation, it can be the better option. And here's something that surprises a lot of people. These programs aren't just for low-income buyers. If you're a first-time buyer in Seattle making $120,000 a year, you might still qualify for Home Advantage. That's working professional income. These programs exist because home prices in Washington, especially King County, have gotten so high that even well-earning buyers need help to close that gap. Beyond the two main mortgage programs, there are several specialty programs that serve specific populations. And then there are local programs layered on top of everything at the city and county level, and this is where the numbers can get really significant. So let's start with the specialty programs. If you're a veteran or active duty military, Washington has dedicated down payment assistance for you. The Veterans DPA program can provide up to $10,000 as a second mortgage, deferred for 30 years at a 3% interest rate. And remember, this can be stacked on top of a VA loan, which already comes with zero down payment required. So as a veteran, you've got a path to buy a home in Washington with potentially no money down and additional assistance at closing. If you or a member of your household has a disability, there's a program that can provide up to $15,000 in down payment help, also structured as a deferred second mortgage. This one at 1% interest for 30 years. A lot of buyers don't know this exists. If it applies to you, ask about it by name. There is also the Covenant Homeownership Program, and this one is worth knowing about because it's one of the more significant new programs in the country. Washington State passed legislation to address its documented history of racially restrictive housing covenants, which systematically excluded certain communities from homeownership for decades. The Covenant program provides zero-interest down payment assistance for buyers who are eligible based on their background and the history of exclusion in housing. Income limits apply. If you think you might qualify, ask an approved lender about it specifically. One more specialty program, Energy Spark. If you're buying a home that exceeds Washington's energy efficiency standards by 15% or more, or if you make qualifying upgrades after purchase, you can get an additional interest rate reduction on your mortgage. For buyers looking at newer construction or energy efficient homes, this is worth factoring in. Now, local programs. This is where things get really interesting. Cities and counties in Washington layer their own down payment assistance on top of WSHFC programs, and in some cases, the numbers are substantial. Seattle, through the Office of Housing and partnerships with nonprofits like HomeSite, offers up to $55,000 for open market homes and up to $70,000 or $90,000 for certain resale restricted homes. This is for buyers at or below 80% of area median income. King County has its own program offering up to $45,000 as a deferred loan for first-time buyers purchasing in certain areas: Auburn, Federal Way, Tukwila, and unincorporated King County. There's also the ARCH program, which covers East King County, Bellevue, Kirkland, and surrounding cities, with up to $50,000 for income qualifying buyers. Clark County, and that's the Vancouver area, has a program that can provide up to $60,000, which is among the highest in the state. It relaunched in 2025, so if you're buying in Clark County, ask about it. And this is the key thing that I want you to take away from this segment. These local programs stack on top of the state programs. A buyer in Seattle who qualifies for Home Advantage DPA, plus the city's assistance program, could potentially have $40,000 to $60,000 in total down payment help, without it being low income, and that changes the math dramatically. Before we wrap up, one more tool worth knowing about: the Mortgage Credit Certificate, the MCC. This isn't down payment assistance. It's a federal tax credit that allows eligible first-time buyers to claim a portion of the mortgage interest they pay each year directly on their tax return. Not a deduction, a credit, which is dollar for dollar off your tax bill. Over the life of a loan, an MCC can be worth tens of thousands of dollars. It's not as flashy as a cash DPA, but it compounds over time. Ask your loan officer if an MCC makes sense for your situation. All right, let me bring this all together with the one thing I want you to actually do after this episode. Don't just file this away as good information, because here's the thing about these programs: they have limited funding. Local programs especially can run out. The Covenant program has income limits that change. Clark County's program relaunched with a set pool of money. When that money's gone, it's gone until the next funding cycle. So the move is to figure out what you qualify for now before you're actively shopping, not when you're ready to make an offer. Here's how to do that. Step 1, take the free homebuyer education course at heretohome.org. It's 5 hours, you can do it online, and it's a prereq for almost every program we talked about today. Step 2, find a WSHFC approved loan officer. The WSHFC website has a directory of approved lenders, or you can reach out to me directly. I'm a WSHFC approved loan officer, and I can run the numbers for you. Figure out which programs you qualify for, how they stack, and what you'd actually need to bring to closing. That conversation is free, and it takes about 20 minutes. Step 3. If you're in Seattle, King County, or Clark County specifically, ask about the local programs by name. Don't wait for them to be offered. Ask, are there any city or county DPA programs I should know about? A good loan officer will know. If they look at you blankly, that's useful information too. If today's episode was useful, share it. Send it to someone who's thinking about buying their first home in Washington. You might literally be sending them $10,000. Follow the show on Instagram at signedandfunded for quick hits between episodes. Link to Apple Podcasts in the bio. Next week on Signed and Funded, we're moving from the money side to the strategy side. Episode 8 is going to be all about making an offer that actually wins in Seattle, because in a competitive market, the right price is only part of the equation. Offer structure, contingencies, earnest money, timing, all of that matters. We're going to break down exactly how to put a competitive offer together. Thanks for listening to Signed and Funded. I'm Scott Alfano. New episodes every week, one topic at a time, so you always know exactly what you're getting. Until next time, go make a good move.